Okay, we had a question this week in the forum about how to do a side opening pop-up card using Happy Birthday. So I just started playing with Popup Card Studio to see what I could come up with, and this is the card I ended up with. I actually created the whole card in Popup Card Studio, although I did find the balloon shape in the Make the Cut gallery. So what I'll do is show you the balloon that I found and how to put it in your shapes in Popup Card Studio in case you ever want to use a balloon. It'll be there for you. And then I'll show you how I created this particular card. Now, you can make it any way you want. That's the beauty of having software. It doesn't have to be the way I did it. And you don't have to use balloons if you don't want to. I originally had a cake that I was going to put over here, but I decided when I made the card that I really didn't need the cake, but you could embellish it with whatever you wanted. I had a stray piece of heart cut out from my other project, so I just stuck it on the card, mostly to hide a tear in the paper, because it was just supposed to be a practice cut, but it turned out to be pretty good, but I had to hide the tear. You get creative when you have needs like that. So I also had scrap paper and green to do the lettering, so I put it over it after I finished the card. So I'm going to show you first and Make the Cut where I got these balloons. If you go up to the gallery icon at the top and you type in birthday space party, I used descending and clicked on search, I found these balloons, which are what I wanted to use. So you click on download and that gives you some balloons. So I just selected those, use Control-C copy, or you can go to edit, copy. And that's really all I needed Make the Cut for. So I can just close that file. I don't need to really save it. I copied it into another page because I may use these later, I'm not sure. So then I opened up Popup Card Studio and I'll just do a new file. I made it 6 by 6 inches. You can make it however tall and wide you want, but I wanted to have enough room to kind of play with text here. And then I went into, well, I'm going to paste those balloons here first. Just Control-V, paste the same balloons I had Make the Cut, or edit and paste. You see the shortcuts right here, Control+V. And that put it on my screen here. Well, I don't really need it right now, and I don't really need two. I'll just delete one. And I'm going to select this one and go to File, Export, Selection to your library. So when I do that, it adds the shape to my library here. I'll just call this Balloon 1. It's already added one here just for fun. Now, anytime there are shapes that I like to use a lot, it's good to add them to your library. Then if you want to retrieve them later, let me just delete this one and I'll click on the heart and go to My Shapes, and there's that balloon. I'll double click on it and there it is. Well, I don't need it right now, so I'm just going to set it aside for now. And the next thing I need to do is set my card up to be side opening. There's a quick, easy way to do that, and that is to set, instead of landscape, to set the layout as portrait. And what that does is it changes the orientation of your card. It's a little bit harder to think in this mode because X and Y stay the same. So even though we've turned it around, we still have the back of the card over here. We have the bottom of the card here. And height is still this way going horizontally, and width is still going up and down. So that's really the only difference. Everything else works the same. And what I wanted to do, I'll click the space bar to move over here to this other plane. And I would like to set my plane at 3 inches, kind of halfway, to give me room to make a pop-up that comes out and folds back. So if I set up here where it says position, I'm going to set this at 3 inches. And that will give me the option of adding text here. And I'm just holding the right key and moving my mouse to the right to give me a straight-on look on this plane to work on. So remember, we're at the 3-inch plane. The next thing I did was add my text, clicking on the T. And I'm just going to use Clarendon Bold, which is my favorite Popup Card Studio text, and click on the mat, and there's my happy, and I'll add that, and then I'm going to click again, and I'm going to type in birthday. Uppercase is a default here, and that's what I want, so I'll click on add. Now what I want is for my letters to be exactly 6 inches wide, but before I can resize them, I'm going to crop them a little because they have to be resized again. I'm going to leave the spacing the way it is. It can be changed, but I don't really need to change it. I'm going to use this cropping tool, the 4th icon on the left toolbar, and set my snapping down to the smallest. And to crop, I'm going to use this exclusive, I think it's exclusive rectangle, and just drag around the very tops of the letters just to make them nice and even, because if they're not even, they won't form the necessary score lines. I'll do the birthday the same, just cropping off, especially the curved edges won't work to make the lines we need to snap. Well, that works good. But, you know, I just remembered something. I'm going to undo all that because, and I'll redo again. I figured out, wait a minute, these letters won't work as a solid line straight across because they're all separate. So either I need to weld them together, or what I decided to do was just to add a bar to the top and the bottom and weld them together. That really worked. So what I'm going to do is select this text and resize it to where I want it. I don't need to crop it yet. And so I come over here to this. I'm going to put this down here. Did you see what I did? It was up too high, so I just dragged this toolbar down here. And I'm going to change the size of this happy to be 1. And notice the width is really the height. So I'm going to make it the height 1. Enter. And I'm going to make the height, which is the width on this, I'm going to make it 6 inches and enter. That's how long I want this to be for right now. And birthday, the same thing. I'm going to make it the width 1 and enter. And the width, you know what? Don't want it as, I'll leave it 6. Enter. Fun thing is you can play with this. You can use any text that you want. You can use any height that you want. You can use any position. That's depending on the decorations that you want to use. So next I need to draw a rectangle. So I'm just going to use this pen tool and I'll use the auto quad 2-point rec, and so I'll just left click where I want it to start and left click where I want it to end, and I've got a little rectangle. You can make it as thick or as thin as you want. I think I just made mine be about 1/4 of an inch tall. So under W, I type 0.25, enter, and then the length, I want it to be 6 inches under H. And now that I have that little bar, I'm going to use Control-Shift-Click to make me another, and again, Control-Shift-Click. And I'm putting a bar at the top of each one of these. You could make yours the way you want, with or without a bar, but for me it was easier to connect them this way. And once I got them kind of spaced the way I want them, I wanted to give myself some room for some balloons. And I want them to line up to the left. Let's see if I type an L if it'll do that. No. Oh, because the left is not the left. The left is the bottom. Top, so T. Ah, T lined it up perfectly. Isn't that funny? Top. I'm going to do the same thing. Select both and type T, and that lines them up. Once I have them lined up the way I want, I'm going to weld them together. So we have a weld icon down here, Control+W welds. And I'm going to undo it because I see the top box wasn't quite overlapping enough. And use a down arrow just to tap it down a little bit. I better line them up again. So let's select these and type T. And now weld. There they go. I'll do the same thing here. Select these, weld. So now I have a couple words. Now the only part that we have to adjust on here is that we have to trim a little bit off on the left and right side. And when I was making my card, I was thinking, well, if I trim off too much, maybe I like this little space on here. I could add a block here and add a block here. Or what I did, and I'm not sure whether you really need to do this, is click the pen, and I drew another rectangle, left click here and left click here, and I put a bar down the left side and the right side, which made kind of a frame. Now you could do that if you wanted to. And you can make it as exactly how tall you want. So I made the whole frame, and then it was a real quick fix. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'll just play with it a little differently. What I'm going to do here is select this one and type T to align them exactly to the left and right. And I'm going to move them out a little bit. And I'm going to crop these so that these will connect straight to the card. So I'll just use this cropping tool. Again, it's still set at 1/28 of an inch for snapping. And I'm going to click and drag just a little bit barely over the edges of these letters to make sure they're straight. So again, I'll do that on the right, and that gives me nice straight thing. Now, you can set these wherever you want. I think when I did my card that I used my down arrows. Oops, you know what? Down is up. So right goes up, left goes down. I'm going to take this right down to the 1/2 inch line down here. And this one, maybe I could take it up, I don't know, maybe I want it on 1 inch. You can really do what you want. I think I just eyeballed it. maybe here. And this one, maybe I'll get this 3/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to use this down arrow tool, which is aligned to the bottom of the plane, and it takes it over to the left. And I'll do the same thing with this one. And we'll do it again because it didn't go all the way down. There it goes. And we'll do the same thing here. We want that to stick to this side. So if I hold my right mouse button and drag to the left, you'll see that my text is just hanging out in thin air. When I'm happy with the way it looks, then what I can do is click on this fold. It looks like a folded card. Fold. And because I have it 6 inches and I have it set on the 3-inch plane, it should fold back to connect to the other side. So I'll accept that and I'll fold back there. Now as I was building this, I was just playing with it to figure out, now is this how I want it? Well, it looks pretty good. Let's look in the preview just to see if it's getting to be where I want it to be. Print preview. I have score lines here. Oh, well, this is not in the middle. I wonder why. I think my sizing was off. This happened when I actually made it.
When you trimmed the sides, you didn't take them back to 6 inches.
Right. That's what happened. And I did that the first time I did this. And if you check it, that's one reason why we go back to print preview to check to make sure those lines match up. So in order to fix that, I don't have to redo the whole thing, but I'm going to resize it. Again, you notice that my width is at 1.5 now, or 1.4. I think I'd like it to make it even 1.5. Enter. And then at the bottom, I'm going to make this height the exact 6 inches and enter. And do the same thing with this one. We'll make it 1.5 high and enter, and then 6 inches here. Enter. Now before I actually attach this, I want to make copies of this because in fact, I figured out when I did this that before I welded it, I should have saved the happy birthday. And that way that I could make those letters, like in my picture, be a different color. But if you don't do it before you weld, then your letters don't really fit. You can try to reproduce it, but they don't fit exactly. So to fix that, well, I could just type more letters here. There's birthday, and again, happy. Sometimes it's just better to start over. Again, all I really need here, since I know what the measurements were, I can just resize this again to the 1 inch that I had and enter, and then the 6 inches. But you'll recall that I welded and I changed the height, and it's never going to match up perfectly to those letters. Not bad. When I made my card, I didn't want to redo it, so this is what I did. It worked okay. So this one too, I'll resize this to 1 inch, and so I keep forgetting to press enter. You have to press enter after each number. So change that to 6. So I have these letters that I'm using here, and what I'm going to do is select them both, holding the shift key, do a copy, and then go to make the cut, and do paste in place. And now I've got my letters over here. I'll rotate them so you can see them. They're ready to add to my card. And before I connect anything back in Popup Card Studio, I'm just going to delete these because I don't really need them over here, although I should save them with the file. Maybe I'll put them over here. I think that balloon is hidden also somewhere. Oh, there it is down there. If I had saved these originally, I would have them. Oh, press the D key and click on the shape. That takes you to it. And but I'm going to delete it because I'm going to add it again. Now what I'm doing here is I'm working with my design, and I'm going to build a design before I fold this back. So I'm looking straight on. I'll just press the bar so it's out of the way, the grid's out of the way. What I want to do is add some balloons. Well, I see this happy is a little bit high to add anything. I'm going to press D, click on the happy. That puts me on that plane, and I'm going to again take it down a bit. I want room on top for some balloons, and I want room in between for some balloons. So again, I'm just going to drag it out and make sure that it goes down to the edge so it's in place. So it's stuck to the side now. I'm going to add my balloons. So remember, I added my balloons to the library. So see, there's a balloon, double click, and that gives me the balloon on the same plane. It needs to be rotated, so we have a rotate 90-degree tool at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, fourth icon from the left. And now I've got a balloon. I can change its angle and its rotation, and what I did was just, do we have a duplicate? Duplicate. I don't see a duplicate, but I do have a copy and paste.
Control-Shift works.
Control-Shift what? Control-Shift? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. So Control-Shift just gives me another. But what I want to do is decide where I'm going to place these and maybe rotate some. And you can put them where you want. If they're too big, then you can resize them. And you can put as many balloons as you want. What I wanted to do was to get the strings maybe overlapping the letters a little bit. And in between, you can click again to get the rotation handles. If they're a little too big, I wanted to kind of make the balloons connect the top with the bottom. And I Control-Shift click gives it to me again, and I'm just going to mirror it this time. Oh, not mirror, flip. Got to remember up and down have been reversed. And you could make as many balloons as you want. I'll do Control-Shift click here, and maybe again flip those. I like to keep my additions of designs kind of in odd numbers, and you could just put them where you want. You could make them overlap or have more strings showing or not. And it's kind of good if you don't want to, this is the center fold line. You could, if you want the balloon to fold in half, that's fine. It might not be so smooth for folding, so you might want to keep most of it on one side of the fold or the other. And just position where you want them. Once you have the balloons where you want them, I select them all, holding the Shift key. And again, copy, Control-C, copy, and then go over to make the cut. Double click and Control-Shift-V to put them in where I want, and rotate them around. So I know the sizing. But then I decided, and you get all these brainstorms while you're doing it. I didn't dream this up, and then make it. I started making it and playing with it. I decided for these balloons, since they're not going to cut out of this particular design, these are going to be a different color. So I would like to shadow these balloons and weld the shadow to the text. So we have a shadow button here. That's a weld shadow. We do have a shadow here, don't we, Susan? Maybe not.
Yes.
I'm going to, where is it? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Blackout.
Yeah.
Shadow, right here. Third icon from the right where it should be. So I'm going to click on this shadow, and I'm going to give myself a 0.02 shadow. Or you can make it bigger, maybe a 4. I think I made mine a 5. But I'll make it 5. That makes it a little bigger than the balloons are going to be, and accept. Then I'm just going to, since I've already copied the balloons, I will just hold Shift to select each of the balloons and move them to the side because I'm not really going to use them here. What I am going to do is I'm going to use them all on this card. And I'm going to select everything and weld. Now once the card is made, I'll be able to add the balloons and have a little opposite color, contrasting color. And I'd see now that I've got balloons in here that this goes way to the top and this goes to the bottom. If I click on this center, it'll kind of center the whole thing. And I want to make sure that it's at the bottom, and it says it's already at the bottom. And I'm going to go to print preview to make sure that these lines are red here. These are red. That looks good. So I'll close it. And now I'm going to, with it still selected, I'm going to fold it back and accept it. So you see that it's connected here. I again want to check and make sure that the fold lines are in the center where the center of the card is, and hey, look at that, they all line up. Alright, so now that I have that, I don't really need all of this over here, and I've got it already in Make the Cut, so I'm going to delete it. We can check this card a little bit. Over here on the right it says Open Card. You can slide this to open to see what it's going to look like flat, what it's going to look like closed, and it looks like it should be fine this way. So I think I'm ready to either cut this or to export it. You can cut this on any Make the Cut compatible cutter. For example, I can export and project rendering to machine, and it will give me any of the machines that are directly compatible. I would probably do it on my Zing here, and then I could just begin cutting. Now I do have my score lines selected set to solid, and that's because I use an engraving tool to engrave all score lines. It makes my cards much easier to work with. If the engraving, when I use the Zing, my engraving tool doesn't work as well, so when I use the Zing, I use an embossing tool to do those. So, but when I use some other of my machines, I can go to File, Export, Project Rendering, and instead of going to the machine, I have several machines that don't work with Make the Cut, so I will send it as render it as an SVG file and just put it on my desktop, and let's say we call this Pop-Up Card, Birthday Card, and save it. And then it's saved as SVG. I can put it into any software that uses SVG, and it's pretty much ready to go. You can right click and hold it and drag to see different angles, and if you're happy with the way it is, you can go up here to File and Save As, and also save it as a PCS. So maybe I'll call this Pop-Up Birthday Card. Way I can open it to this point and edit it. Maybe I want to add a cake, and maybe I want to add some confetti. You can add whatever you want to add and how you want to add it, but that's the fun of creating your own design. Now this is a different design than my original. Here's my original again. You see I added a bar here and a bar here, as well as the bars that were across. And on this happy, I didn't resize it. I just made the bars 6 inches, and I left happy at the side, at the width that it was when I typed it in. So you can do whatever you want. And so you see around these pink balloons there's a red outline. That was the shadow that I made here. So once I have this all done, I also, besides sending this whole thing out as a SVG, I went to File, Export, and Project Shapes. That's all the pieces. And I saved the shapes also, so that if I want to put a background on here, like maybe I have some printed party paper that I want to use, I could actually lay it over on the background because I exported the shapes. So now if I go in to make the cut here, I can go to SVG, Pop-Up Birthday Card, and I get the card here. And move the balloons out and change the color a little bit so you can see it. Oops, I don't want to move it without all the score lines. I'm going to shrink it down a little so I can grab all of it. And then I can also bring in the SVG of the shapes, which gives me the option of taking portions of the design. Let's say I wanted to put this here as a background on the card, and maybe I want to put this here as a background on the card. I could do that. If I wanted to, I could take just these portions and put them on. But I did save my balloons here, and those are the shapes. I think I will rotate this around. Click the rotate 90 degrees so you can see the card here. Then I can pick up these balloons, send them to the top with the smaller of the two green plus icons, and then I will be gluing those on here. Likewise with the letters, maybe I'm going to make these red. I'll send them to their own layer and change them to red, and those can go over these letters here like this. You can end up making your card be whatever you like. I didn't resize this to the height. So this is where, before you do anything to your letters, copy them from the source so that they're perfect here. I think resizing these to 6 inches by 1 inch will give me the right size. Now, have to take that lock off. 6, tab 1, enter. Now these should fit. Yep. So then you can cut these out of different colors. The backgrounds, if you don't like that ugly green, you can make it whatever color you want. So then you can, again, you can cut it all from here or from any other program. You can export all this as an SVG.